Welcome back to Yahoo Finance Live. Now, the airline industry is getting a boost to the tune of tens of billions of dollars, which will help keep airline and airport workers in their jobs, at least for now. So let's chat this more with Sara Nelson, president of the Association of Flight Attendants-CWA. So Sara, the airline industry has canceled, those furloughs, roughly 27,000 jobs that had been on the chopping block. For now, at least. But the recovery for the industry is going to take a long time. I'm wondering if you're still concerned that those flight attendants and other airline and airport workers, could be on the chopping block in the future.
So, Kristin, we put this plan in place actually last March in the CARES Act, and we had enough bargaining power with the airlines themselves in order to make this workers first. It was 1.25% of the CARES Act, but it required the airlines to put all the government funding to workers' pay and benefits to make sure that we stay in our jobs connected to our health care. That means that we can continue to pay our taxes and feed into the local and state budgets and continue Social Security contributions, pension contributions, all of that. So it's a really good return to the public as well. And what this does is this extends the program through September 30th of 2021. So this has been a total of 16 months of support for pay and benefits. And it's not just those furloughs that were in place. There were a lot of people who were taking unpaid leaves in order to keep their health insurance. So we were right up around 100,000 people. But I should just note that our ranks have been slimming down during the time. People have been taking early retirements. And I think that by the time we hit September 30th, we're going to see an increase in demand that will reach also the reduction in numbers of people on the job. And we're probably going to be fine if we stick with the plan that the Biden administration has in place for vaccinations.
Now, in your statement, you did say that trickle-down economics was dead and that this relief is just the start and that you guys are ready and prepared and gearing up to fight and to continue to fight for the workers in your union. I'm wondering what kind of help, if this isn't enough, what kind of help employees in this sector really should be getting to best help them navigate through the rest of this pandemic.
Well, I think that when we talk about trickle-down economics being dead, that is really about how we are focusing this relief. We were able to get workers first, even under the Trump and McConnell regime, because we had Nancy Pelosi and we had Chuck Schumer fighting along with us. We brought the airlines to this plan as well, so we were all speaking with one voice, and we actually built a ton of bipartisan support. But now we're talking about taking the principles of our plan from last year and applying it to the rest of the relief package. So when we say this is just a start, we can't just make sure that people have access to healthcare now, good jobs now, secure jobs, safety nets now. We have to be looking to the future. So that's really about Build Back Better and the overall work that we need to do to rebuild an economy from the ground up rather than from the top down.
I want to ask you about vaccinations. We've seen a lot of frontline workers getting vaccinated, being prioritized for vaccination. Doctors, for example, teachers are another group. What are you hearing from the airlines, at least in terms of supporting getting those flight attendants, the pilots, vaccinated?
Yeah, so this has been a problem because the vaccination plan has been pushed to the states to complete. And of course, we fly all over the place and are crossing state borders all the time. And so we have different rules depending upon where flight attendants live and are based. And not everyone is able to get access to those vaccines because not every state is prioritizing frontline aviation workers. So what we have been doing is trying to get those governors to change the rules. We have also been talking with, for example, Secretary Buttigieg about putting forward a federal plan to have vaccination clinics in all of the airports. We've been successful in doing this, actually, in partnering with the airports in the cities in Chicago and Denver and Honolulu, and we're hoping that that will continue to spread. We're trying to get that in place in the New York airports, in New Jersey as well. And really, we've got to have access to this vaccine because we are some of the people who are most likely to come in contact with the virus as we're working, and the most likely then to be carriers because of the nature of our work. So it's really important that we get vaccinated. But we're also really concerned about making sure that the vaccine can make it to every country in the world, because the only way that the aviation industry is going to come back is if we have international travel back. And we know from our work over decades that when there's an epidemic, when there's an outbreak, if it's anywhere in the world, it's at risk of getting everywhere in the world. So we've got to lift those WTO restrictions on intellectual property so that all countries can ratchet up production and make that available everywhere around the world, so that we're not allowing this virus to mutate and move beyond the vaccination capabilities today. So we're working on all of these issues with the Biden administration to make sure that not only are we getting vaccinated, but the rest of the world is too, and we can fully restore our jobs.
I want to ask you another question here, Sara, about worker safety. And we've seen some states, some governors lifting mask mandates altogether, which has forced a lot of companies, a lot of frontline workers to essentially try to enforce some of those mask mandates. And I've been reading a lot of headlines, really disturbing ones, where we're seeing flight attendants being assaulted while asking some passengers to keep their masks, over their mouth and over their nose. I'm wondering how we can continue to keep some of these flight attendants safe, and if you think that some states out there are making that job harder.
The mixed messages coming from the states is absolutely making that harder. We do have a federal mandate in all transportation that everyone must be wearing a mask at all times. We also have federal penalties for anyone who is not complying, so up to $35,000 per violation and jail time. If you are violating that, you can also be fined in the airports. All of these things are important, but the mixed messaging and the lack of leadership in some of these states does make our jobs very hard, and not just in terms of enforcing that and keeping everyone safe, but also, as you noted, we have had conflicts on the plane that have included assault against crew members. So this is really problematic, and I think that all of us just need to be very clear that we need to be listening to the CDC. We need to be getting these vaccinations out everywhere that we can. And until we do, we've really got to continue to follow what the CDC is saying, because otherwise this is going to continue on, is going to make it harder for things in the meantime. The fact that we have the American Rescue Plan in place gives us an opportunity now to shore people up, really focus in on eradicating the virus so that we can return to normal and get things back up and running.
All right, Sara Nelson, president of the Association of Flight Attendants-CWA. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kristin.